Chapter 113, Request. Mr. Azek can tell that I'm a Beyonder? His ability is truly powerful. Klein froze for a moment before he gave an honest reply. Yes. He thought for a while before adding, because of what happened to Welch and Naya. It's as I thought, Azek sighed. There were two people with extraordinary powers amongst the group of police that came to question me and Cohen. It was probably Captain and Leonard. They were in charge of Welch's case. Klein nodded slightly, not interrupting Azek. Azek raised his cane and said, You should have entered their circle. I hope that you can help me search for clues of my origin. You do not need to go out of your way to do it, just note it down if you find any clues. Upon saying that, Azek wore a bitter smile. I don't know any other person with extraordinary powers. You cannot imagine what emotions a man without a past has. You are like a boat floating in a vast ocean. The most terrifying thing is not facing a storm, but not being able to find a harbor. The inability to navigate to shore. All you can do is take on disaster after disaster, with no end in sight, never to feel peace and safety. No, Mr. Azek, I know how it feels, for I am in a similar position. Fortunately for me, I have the memory fragments of the original Klein, as well as Melissa and Benson. Klein answered silently before he asked, Mr. Azek, why didn't you join a similar group when you possess such magical ability and search for clues yourself? Azek looked into Klein's eyes and let out a self-deprecating smile. Because I'm afraid. I'm afraid of death. He sighed and continued, I have gotten used to life like this. I like my life. I don't have the courage to take that risk, so I can count on you. Klein didn't say any more. He promised, I'll pay special attention if I come across any clues. All right, we should return to the office. Let's have lunch together with Cohen when he's done with work. Do you remember? The East Balham restaurant in the university is quite good. My treat. Azek lifted his cane and pointed to a direction. My apologies, I really have no memories of that. How could the studying original Klein have afforded the East Balham restaurant? Even if Welch was treating, he would still reject going to such an expensive place. Klein pressed on his hat and returned to the third level of the grayish stone building which housed the history department with Azek. A few steps later, Azek suddenly spoke. I'll be on summer break after I finish settling all my work at the university. You can visit me at my house or write to me. Klein nodded and said casually, Mr. Azek, I thought that you would head to Desi Bay for a vacation. No, it is too hot in the south right now. I don't like the so-called sunbathing. Look at my skin color, it tans easily. I'd rather head to the Winter County, to the north of the Fasak Empire to ski, sightsee, or hunt seals. Azek, who had a bronze skin tone, smiled as he replied, I would too. Klein, who had just joined the Nighthawks, revealed a look of envy. After lunch, Klein returned home and took a nap before beginning his revision and study of charms and amulets. He hoped to grasp them quickly to create objects that could at least be used in battle and help him. When it was approaching 3 in the afternoon, Klein packed his stuff and sealed the room with a wall of spirituality. In the majestic divine hall above the gray fog sat a long, ancient mottled table. Klein sat at the seat of honor, his face enveloped by the thick fog. He looked at the still obscured justice and the hanged man as they appeared at their designated seats. Miss Justice's emotions doesn't seem too stable. Worry, unease, and a little lost. Klein observed the only female member of the Tarot Club with his spirit vision. Words couldn't describe Audrey Hall's emotions. She was extremely shocked by Susie's sudden speech. She had imagined a future with herself as a great detective or famous psychologist bringing along her assistant Susie, but if that became the dog detective Susie bringing along her assistant Miss Audrey, then it would be a little, no, not a little, it would be straight up weird. It leaves me lost. Audrey suddenly sat up straight. She wanted to request for Mr. Fool's and the hanged man's help, but she swallowed the words she was about to say. How should I ask this? What should I do if my pet is abnormal? How should I interact with a pet that can speak, one that has decent intelligence? No, this is the Tarot Club, not an experience sharing on pets. I bet that the good impression that the hanged man and Mr. Fool have of me would shatter if I ask those questions. Audrey's mind whirled. Finally, she organized her words and said, Honorable Mr. Fool and Mr. Hanged Man, who has helped me all this time, I have a question to ask. What can a pet with Beyonder powers do for its owner? In other words, how useful is it? She had just said her piece when she noticed Mr. Fool and the hanged man slip into silence. The atmosphere became a little weird. Hey, say something, don't look at me with those eyes, I did nothing. Really, I was asking for a friend. Audrey wanted to burrow into a hole out of shame. She deeply regretted asking that question, considering that she had previously asked what would happen if an ordinary animal consumed a sequence potion. Did she share the potion she formulated with her pet? That seems like something only Miss Justice would do. I feel a little pathetic being the boss of a heretic cult, with her as a member. Klein lifted his right hand and propped it against his forehead and pinched it twice without giving an answer. The hanged man Alger Wilson was silent for nearly 20 seconds before he replied in a strange tone. That depends on what kind of beyonder powers the pet has. For example, if it's a spectator, then it can help you observe or listen in on certain occasions. As you know, most humans are wary of each other, but would never suspect that a pet would be eavesdropping on them, even if the pet was sitting right by their feet. It makes sense. Father would avoid me when discussing important matters with the nobles, cabinet members, and other ministers. They would often lock the door to the room. But if Susie could hide long enough to be locked in with them, then she wouldn't be chased away. Also, many ladies like to interact within private social circles. Audrey had a sparkle in her eyes as many thoughts welled in her mind. Also, since Susie can speak now, she can tell me the content of the meetings directly. Susie is great. I have to treat you well. I have to teach you proper pronunciation and vocabulary. Should I teach Susie the aristocratic pronunciation or a more normal Backlund accent? Would other dogs pick up on where Susie comes from when they interact? Wait, why am I considering this? Susie wouldn't use human language when interacting with other dogs. Wait, Mr. Hanged Man, why did you use spectator as an example? See, could you have guessed what happened? Audrey's expression changed. She regained her posture and smiled. Mr. Fool, I found another page of Emperor Roselle's diary. I got this from Fur's wall. Great, you have repaid what you owed, Klein replied in a good mood. I am sorry, but there's not much content on this page of the diary. Audrey was conjuring the content she remembered onto the piece of goatskin. Klein raised his hand and made the goatskin parchment appear in his palm before saying, That doesn't affect my promise. Furthermore, the parts of the diary you handed me previously had 2 pages. The pages collected by Justice and the Hanged Man were not originals. They were copied by researchers. Some would copy it on one page for recording purposes, while others kept the original look of the diary for convenience. Klein looked down at the few lines of text on the page. December 20th. A new year approaches, but the feedback I received is making me very confused and troubled. There is no crude oil in this world. There's no crude oil to be found.